Serious, Native Americans of Reddit, what are the creation stories of your tribe? Were you told them as children? I'm Choctaw and we have several. One is that Earth is a turtle and we are all on its back. Another is that we rise from the ground, created by God out of mud. And then there is a migration theory that we walked a long distance, carrying the bones of our ancestors with us, riding every morning and walking in the direction a stick was leaning that had been stuck in the ground the night before. One day the suck wasn't leaning so we stopped. There is also a story of a flood separating the tribe and the two tribes growing independently, taking the names of each brother that led the two tribes. I'm technically not Native American, I'm Native Alaskan. I'm supposedly full native, with some European ancestry due to the expeditions. I am Inupiaq, Inupiaq, which is from the mid to far north of Alaska. I haven't really heard my tribe's world creation stories, but I'm sure my grandmother has, so I'll ask her next I see her, which will be within the hour, actually. Does anyone know any good stories from the Northern Cheyenne tribe? I went through a lot of different foster homes throughout my life, and I've always been interested in where I come from. I'm Cherokee. From what I have been told, our Indian name White Killer originated when members of the tribe would catch a type of white fish in the river and it stuck. My great-granddad's name is Buffalo White Killer. I don't know much about it but it's my history and something to be proud of. That is an awesome name. The English name of my particular nation in the Blackfoot Confederacy, Kenai, is a blood tribe. Apparently it's because our Plains Cree enemies used to say we were bloodthirsty and cruel. Not about creation. I posted this before but I think you guys will like this. I'm Inupiaq Alaskan. When I was younger I would visit my family in Alaska. They were located in a small village on the Bering Sea where the native Alaskan culture was very much alive. One day we decided that we would take a boat ride down the coast to collect herring eggs on seaweed and seagull eggs. You may laugh but this is a way of living for the native Alaskans. The boat ride was about an hour long. The ocean was stagnant with a salty smell, and the lighthouse was just beginning to leave our sight. We pulled up to a swallow bay and started collecting the herring eggs on seaweed with a rake and look for seagull eggs. After we gathered enough to satisfy our needs we decided to anchor on shore and set up a fire to enjoy some of our hard work. We drank campfire coffee, boiled in a pot with no filter, and ate some of our gatherings. My grandmother, who is full Inupiaq Eskimo, started telling old myths of Alaska to us. She told us the story of the Yukon giants, civilizations of Sasquatches who live on the Yukon, and the little people of the coast, aliens with extraordinary powers. The hair on my neck was erect and I was getting very jittery. The whole vibe of the situation changed when she was telling these stories. In fact, it was quite ominous. At the end of the story she stood straight up and said, "We have to go right now." We never questioned her and packed our things up right away. She was 5'8" with big hands and feet and a round face. We drowned the fire and launched the boat back home. At that moment 6 massive grizzlies stormed over the small hill in which we were camped at the bottom. I have never been so amazed at the ferocity of an animal. If there was one animal that I would never frick with it would be the grizzly, and I still believe that if we did not leave at the time that we may have been in a horrible situation. But it doesn't stop there. A fog bank rolled in and the weather took turn for the worse. The sea was rolling and visibility was less than 1 mile. Somehow we managed to see the lighthouse just as things were starting to look grim. I always knew my grandmother was a spiritual woman, but until this day I do not understand how she knew when to leave. I think it has something to do with being a mother. I have stories like this with my mother knowing things she had no earthly business knowing. Well, there's two. One is blatantly racist, and I'm wondering if it's even legit. So the Penobscot deity is Glauskab, and in the racist story he cooked these cutout dough figures that looked like people in an oven. One group was overcooked and burnt. Another group was undercooked and pale. The final group, Indians, came you just right. The second one I know of, and forgive me anyone who knows this better, Glauskab created all these wonderful things. Trees, animals, rivers, and finally he decided to create people. So he shot an arrow into an ash tree and outpoured people. Again, I'm sorry if it sounds a bit choppy and underdone. I haven't been told these stories since I was probably around 8 or 9. Norse mythology talks about a giant troll licking a salt stone until people come out. Here is a Hopi one. There had been many seasons of drought. and the corn and bean harvests were doing poorly. Many of the people were starving, especially the children, of whom many passed away. The population of the villages were dwindling. The medicine man of one village had kept praying throughout this time, however, leaving sticks and suppression so the smoke of them burning could reach the sky. The creator must have heard him, because at the end of a winter, a strong wind began to blow. The season changed to the one of planting, and with it, a man playing a flute came. He was known as Kakepali, and he created spring breezes when he played, which sowed the earth with new seeds of corn. It is said at the end of the harvest, many women had been blessed by Kakepali and had children. I enjoy the creation stories of Alaskan Inupiaq and Tlingit peoples. My BFS family is Tlingit and Athabascan and they have some neat stories. I'm Irish and German though, so they're not my own culture's stories, but I like them a lot just the same. I know this is more literal than what you are looking for, but I'm from the Muckleshoot tribe in WA and it was created when settlers forced a few different tribes together. The Duwamish people and the Upper Puyallup were moved to a prairie reservation and formed the Muckleshoot tribe, named after the prairie. I also remember reading about the White and Green River people and I'd have to refresh my memory, but the Duwamish were from one and the Puyallup from another. Anyway, back to the actual question. I attended our tribal school through 2nd grade and from what I remember it was a raven story. Kahi, Bolashai Chashiash, Biapsaralakak, Biaxakalks Chukdala Biashichat Bagatak. Hello, my name is Comes Home Safely. I'm a member of the Crow Nation, and I'm a member of the Tiza Bundle clan and a child of the Big Lodge clan. I will tell you the Crow, Apsaluk, creation story that has been told to me by my ancestors and elders. This is taken from the LBHC-EDU website. The Crow people say the creator, Arxbadutdia, created the humans by instructing 4 ducks to go down into a body of deep water and retrieve mud from the bottom. The first 3 ducks failed, but after a long time, the 4th duck brought some mud from the bottom of the water. From this the Crow were formed. The creator then breathed into his creation, and for this reason Crow people say that speech or the word is sacred. Then he brought the Crow to a very clear spring, and inside this spring they were shown a man with his bow drawn taut. The creator said, "This is Crow people. I have made them to be small in number, but they will never be overcome by any outside force." The Crow people say that neither man nor woman was made first. It is simply said that the Crow were created. I don't know if I can fully share my creation story. I don't know it as well. I can tell you my favorite story about the Trickster of the Kwakwaka'wak people. There was once a young mink. He was very foolish and often acted before he thought. This day he decided he would find a wife. He told his mother, and his mother only told him to be careful about this decision. He goes on his way, finds a nice wife. The village gathers together to have a big feast with lots of celebration for Mink and his wife. He's happy, she's happy, and now they live together. But one day, when Mink comes home, he asks her when dinner will be ready. He doesn't get an answer. He asks again, a bit louder. Maybe she didn't hear. Again, she doesn't say anything. Getting frustrated, he yells at her. Even then she won't answer him. What a cold woman. Frustrated by this, he hits his wife. Looking at his hand, he finds blood. He's humid, but he soon realizes that the blood is his own. His fist is now bloody and sore. But how? Mink had married a rock. There's more to the story, but it's a lot longer. I don't know if I want to type it all out, lol. I like this, it's funny. If you don't finish it I'll just have to Google it, lol. I have no idea. I wasn't told anything about it, and my father and grandfather were never told either. My great grandfather might have known something about it, but he was only half Native American, and his father, being a white man from Mississippi, never really had much interest, let alone pride in his native side. As it is, we don't even know what tribe we descend from or anything about them. I am of Mi'kmaq descent, and we learned a lot about Mi'kmaq history in public school in Nova Scotia. When I was in grade 8, our teacher was telling us about the world turtle theory and also the sky woman. After he's finished telling the theory of the sky woman, a few of the Christian kids in my class started laughing. "You think that's funny?" chuckled the teacher. Yeah, one girl blurted out, "It's crazy what people believe." So, the teacher began smiling. You think the idea that a woman falls from the sky, is rescued by a bird and placed on the back of a giant turtle which morphs into Pangea sounds more ridiculous than a cosmic hand reaching out from nothingness and making two people and a talking snake out of dirt. Silence befell the classroom for a few moments before one of the super Christian kids walked out, muttering something about pagans. LOL. That was such a formative moment in my life. I too thought the story was cute, but sounded ridiculous. At that young age, it was the first time I realized for myself that we take for granted things like Greek, Roman, Norse pagan gods to be amusing stories, but when you look at the Bible literally it's just as, sometimes more, absurd. TLDR. Learning at Aboriginal creation stories in class. Christian kids start laughing and teacher points out the irony. This is why I'm an atheist. Cree man here. I moved to Calgary, Alberta a few years ago. I was told not to tell many people in this city that I am Cree due to bad blood between Cree and the Blackfoot tribe. I was also told that Blackfoot was given its name because they'd walk through ashes which turned their feet black. I was raised Saginaw Chippewa, Ojibwe, and Choctaw of Oklahoma. Culturally I was educated in Sag Chip customs and culture. I was for a brief period given oral history lessons from an elder in our tribe. The story goes like this. In the beginning there was only the great creator or Jichimanatau in Ojibwe Mowin. He populated the world with a harmonious people, the Anishinaabe, original people, but the harmony ended. The great creator purified the world with water, sending a great flood or mushkabuan. Few survived. Among the surviving was a man, a loon, a turtle, Mizake, a muskrat, and other animals I can't remember. They took turns resting on a log. After a long time the man says, I'm going to swim to the bottom and get some earth. I believe if we get the earth and ask the creator he will help us. He dove and was under the surface for a long time before coming up empty-handed. I can dive to the bottom and get earth in my beak. This is how I get food, explained the loon. The loon resurfaced with an empty beak. Then the turtle tries, without luck, and several others. Not one strong or cunning beast can reach the bottom of the waters and grasp earth for a new world. I can dive to the bottom. A meek voice spoke. It was the little muskrat, and many animals laughed or scoffed at the small beast. But the man calmed the creatures, saying only Jichimanatau can pass judgment. So the muskrat dove, and for much longer than the other creatures and the man he lingered beneath the surface. He emerged unconscious, with a paw full of earth. The man exclaimed. Somber were the animals as the muskrat recovered. Forward swam the turtle. Place the soil on my back. Allow me to bear its weight. So the man placed the soil on, and Jichimanatau saw. Suddenly the four winds blew and the earth began to grow into an island. The man and the other animals danced and sang as it grew, and when it stopped gave thanks to the turtle and the creator for the new life that was given to them, or something like that. I know other stories too, but I recommend buying CDs with native oral history recorded. You can usually find them at powwows or in reservation gift shops. I am Shuswap, and if I knew I would have gladly told you, but I do not know anything about my people except they are gatherers and fishers. Hunting was less necessary due to our huge winding river. The residential schools and child suite took most of the knowledge, and now no one really knows. It saddens me that I can never truly know, but I still visit my grandparents and great-grandparents often to learn anything they have to offer. Cree here. I'm really fuzzy on the whole world creation myths of my people, but one of the main tenets of native spirituality is that all of Canada lies on the back of a giant turtle. I think this story is something that was an amalgamation of various other myths that developed during the 60s and 70s pan-Indian movement. I didn't hear of this particular myth until the late 1990s, so I don't know if it's an actual creation story or something that some people threw together during a powwow in the 70s. I'm Micmac from Eastern Canada, and I went to elementary school on Ares, and we learned a lot of creation stories. They told stories of a deity named Glooskap Kluskap that had the power to do anything he pleased, and the stories ranged from removing frog's teeth because it bit him, blowing pipe smoke on a white skunk and turning it black, and making all huge animals, squirrels and other critters, I think, small and their predators big. Most of the people from my res were Catholic, so these were regarded as just fun stories for children. I never had creation stories told to me because they were lost through the generations and I never got to experience them, but my great Grandfather always told me about the stories his father would tell him and how marvelous they sounded, but Elle was about 5-6 at the time, so Elle didn't really remember much. I would say the Tales of Twins or Monster Slayer was the one keeping my brothers and sisters up all night when we build a fire out in the cool night summer. Being from a full native Navajo, we would stay up all night telling the journey of the twins traveling across the land killing monsters. There is also a game that talked little but the name stood out on Beyond Two Souls. The name Yitzhak, had to look it up, can't spell in Navajo, was one of many monsters of the land. I thought it was pretty good to add in a video game. But yeah, the story of the twins and coyote tales. I wish my dad were still alive. He'd be able to explain the creators of the North, South, East, and West. He was chair and later vice chair for the Tongva, rather a branch of it as we're not exactly unified like we should be. I do remember him telling of a legend of the continents being giant turtle shells, and when their respective turtles moved, we would have earthquakes. I don't remember all of ours to tell it properly, though others have shared one similar, as our peoples are distantly related, so it makes sense, and mostly I remember some of the lessons taken from the stories, and how they inform our view of the world around us and the things within it. We don't just speak of or necessarily make allusion to one creation though. Instead, you would hear something like, "It was the time of first creation." Even if I did remember all of it though, I wouldn't share it. We don't write it down. You have it told you, and then you retell it until you can repeat it back exactly the same. That's just the way with certain things, and this in a place where no one believes that kind of thing still happens, or has for a long time. I'm Nez Perce, but my dad never liked the tribe, so I never really learned anything about them except for basic stuff. I'm basically white as frick. The only one I can think of as a previous member of a Blackfoot tribe in Florida is the first woman was impregnated by the wind as she was facing the wrong direction. That really hammers home the importance of direction. I am Chickasaw, but my mom was adopted as a baby, so she never grew up knowing anything about our tribe. We live in Oklahoma, so all you hear about is the Cherokee Indians. I'm a Northern Cheyenne. While this isn't a creation story, it's the story of my family and how they descended from one lucky woman. On a day in November 1894, the camp my great-great-grandmother lived in was attacked by a force at least 5-10 times larger than our own war party. My uncle, a storyteller at powwows, it was an absolute massacre, with the majority of the casualties being women and children. A handful of Northern Cheyennes escape and hide near in Sand Creek. After this atrocity, my great-great-grandmother would join the war party's retaliation, living just long enough to bear children. How many I was never told, as the direct descendants died from alcohol-related suicide and the other from cirrhosis. There was another user, Ulaposa14, who was asking about information about the Northern Cheyenne. You guys should talk. Not Native American, but I'm taking a philosophy class right now about mythology, and I recently made a presentation on creation myths, specifically Native American and the South Pacific. You would be interested in the book Primal Myths by Barbara Sproul, which is where I got all my material. It's got plenty more cultures than the two I presented on, but it's like a long list of stories. A lot of them have very peculiar themes in common, like how in the beginning there was nothing but water until some animals we call the earth divers, such as turtles or beavers, dove to the bottom to carry up the mud which would turn into the earth. These are from cultures as spread as North Carolina to Oregon, and it begs the question of why they have the same main idea. So I'm currently doing some independent research to identify what's called as an myth that these could possibly have branched from. This. I'm Crow, Apsaluk, and our creation story is very similar to this, except in our creation story, it was ducks that carried the mud up from the bottom. They didn't find any mud on the first 3 tries, but they did in the 4th. That's why the number 4 is sacred to us. I'm Northern Arapaho, and my generation is the very first not to be shipped off to boarding school. Basically, we were taught the Catholic religion and never allowed to learn the superstitions of the Indians. We were never allowed to grow our hair long or speak the language. Now that I'm older, it's something I really wish I knew more about. This is among the worst things that has ever happened in our country. There was this one I heard a few times. It was about this family, a dad, a mom and 2 sons. Something happened to the mother and she died. Sort of. But anyways, our head winds up chasing the family across the plains and the father hands the sons like a rock and some water. As the head chases them, they throw behind them a rock and mountains are formed to aid in their escape. The water makes lakes or oceans. Something along those lines. I love hearing legends. When I was young, I'd read all the books of Raven the Trickster, how Eagle got his eyesight etc. I wish I asked my Nan more legends. She isn't with us anymore. This thread is a real treat. I can't wait to sift through all these amazing legends. Himwicca, legends. See with Karen UU. Bye. I've been reading for at least a day and a half now. Nowhere near having read them all. I'm reading Ceremony right now in school. If you're interested in Native Americans, you might want to read it, I think. Can any of you Native Americans confirm it is a good representation? It is good, but I wouldn't say it is representative. It is hard to learn and understand 500 nations, and within them, countless clans, bands, etc. from one work. I consider myself white, but I am part Cherokee. As a kid I was told this story how my great-great-great-grandfather or someone like that sold his rifle to I guess use as a dowry gift for a Cherokee wife. As I got older I thought it was just some story my dad told me to entertain me and my brother until I found out that it was actually true about a few years ago. Do not call me Native American. It was another term made up by white people without asking us. Just as bad as redskin. Call me an Indian. Otherwise you do a disservice to my ancestors who identified thusly. A very long time ago, men and animals were brothers and lived together below the ground. But at last their leader, a man named Nish, discovered the entrance to a cave leading up to the earth's surface. Nish told everyone they would have to follow him to the new land. The people divided into groups, each with a leader and a drum. Nish told the people to sing and beat their drums as they moved along, and he warned them never to look back the way they had come. Soon they reached the opening. First an old man climbed out, carrying fire and a pipe in one hand and a drum in the other. Next came his wife, bringing corn and pumpkin seeds. Then came the rest of the people and animals. But when Wolf climbed out he turned around and looked back. The opening closed, shutting the rest of the people and animals under the ground, where they still remain. Those who had come out into the world of light sat down and cried for their friends left below in the world of darkness, because their ancestors came out of the ground as Caddos call the middle world mother and return to it when they die. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.